administrators report. Just a few things, and then I'll open it up to the principals if they have anything to add. First of all, today we started our new teacher in-service, and we had 20 new educators in the room today, and it was very, very nice to get to meet them and see them, and they're excited and ready to be here, and it's just kind of fun to listen to their stories as they've moved to town. Many of them tried to find housing, and their stories of apartment hunting, and you know, it brings me back, 19 years when I came apartment hunting in Black River Falls, so it was just kind of fun. Really an excited group, so we're really, really pleased to have them all on board, and it was nice to hear that so many of them were looking for places in Black River Falls because they wanted to be that connected and live in town, so it was very nice. The audit, I just wanted to briefly talk about. We will certainly hear more about it next Monday at the annual meeting, but last week I met for the first time with our district auditors, and if there is ever a time I felt like a fish out of water, it is listening to a financial auditor give us the lowdown on every set of numbers this district has ever encountered. But I made the comment to Wade, the auditor, I said, boy, this is an area I really rely on Jill and Tammy's expertise, and he just said, well, you've got some pretty solid rocks to lean on there. He said, your district is always in excellent shape. He said, it's a pleasure to come and do your audit because no matter what question I ask, they can produce the documentation. He said, you are spot on year after year. So I wanted to recognize Jill and Tammy for their work on that audit. So, and thank God there's people like him that want to do that job. That's not my gig at all. So, but that was, he was extremely, extremely complimentary. So that should be passed on publicly. And then finally, WEAU News is coming next week, Friday, to do a special on virtual education in Black River Falls. And they are going to talk to our high school tech integration coach who has taught some blended courses where some of the class is sitting in the classroom and some of it is on home or at home virtually, in addition to some teachers who are certified to teach virtual courses. They're going to talk to a couple students who've taken blended coursework through Black River and also are interested in hearing more about our Coulee Region Virtual Consortium, in which some Black River Falls teachers who are certified to teach virtual courses are actually teaching students in surrounding school districts as well. And so she called me with just a couple questions about virtual school, and I said, boy, we'd sure love to talk to you about it. We've got an awful lot going on. And she said, well, I'll come on down. So Friday she's coming, and the high school's been very accommodating to get a crew together to work with her. So she sounded like she was looking to do a little spotlight story on virtual education in rural communities and the additional opportunities that it provides for education. So I thought that was exciting to share the good news. So, building principals, anything you'd like to share this early?
I had a couple things just to rattle on. At the middle school, we have our open house set for the 27th, and a school messenger has been gone out on that a few times, so certainly want to welcome, wish parents and students into that. Secretaries came back today. Well, one did, Marla came back, and school social worker Mallory and I were back today. Band lessons have been going on for the past couple weeks. Troy Tandy does such a nice job with those. Chip Elliott and his custodial crew have done a fantastic job in the middle school. The hallways are just shining and everything. It's really looking good. They built a sensory room on the second floor. If you're interested to see what that is, stop on by. It's in one of the special ed classrooms, and it's called the sensory room. So that's pretty interesting. We have a new PA system, and you can actually hear the announcements in the gym rather than sounding like Charlie Brown's teacher. And we are very excited and to get started with the Tiger Way kickoff. We have a group coming in, of teachers coming in, I think it's tomorrow afternoon or Wednesday, tomorrow and Wednesday actually, to work on that and get ready for our kickoff. So we're really excited about that.
Anyone else?
We have a new, as you saw, a new hire in Braggs, and if you want to get a chance to meet that young lady, she is going to come over already on Friday and Saturday and help with the Korean Life Exposition over at the Linda Arena, so I think she's planning to be there a good share of the day. If you want to meet her, I think you'll pick her out probably. And at the school, we got some hustle and bustle going on. The fall sports are all in action as of today. The football and tennis teams have been going, and cross countries and volleyball got going. The gym was full today, and it's plenty warm in there. Everybody needs to cool off. That is not the place to go right now. We're rolling over there.
Couple other things going on at the high school. On the 27th, next Tuesday, we have our open house and we're handing out the laptops to the students and parents. So that will be quite an undertaking. And in preparation for that, we have our next 2 of our 4 in-service training days for our teachers planned for tomorrow and Wednesday. And we also have our new Macintosh Apple lab installed in the former ITV room, complete with a green screen filming room and a soundproof cutting room to put together all of the multimedia and AV productions that Julie Teams does such a nice job of doing. She's going to be working this year actually with the PBS News Hour as well as StoryCorps on PBS, and doing a lot of real interesting projects there. We have 5 new teachers at the high school that we're welcoming in. So a lot going on this week, and we're raring to go.
That PBS activity would be a great one for WEAU also, I would think.
Yeah.
Come down and have that featured. That's
Really
exciting.
Yeah.
That is exciting.
I guess I'll go. At Gebhardt, it seems strange to say. First of all, I just wanted to publicly recognize the Gebhardt staff. They've been very accommodating, and I knew I was going to a great place, but I didn't realize how great it would be till I actually got to meet the people and work with them regularly over the summer. So there's been a lot of communication. I've been really impressed with what Shelley has done and the people that are over there. So I think it'll be a great year. Our open house will be same as middle school, the 27th from 5:15 to 7. And we also have our benchmark assessment with individually scheduled appointments with parents. Some of the times are on the 27th and also the 28th. So if parents haven't heard anything by now, hopefully they've contacted the school because they should have.
I'll go for 4th Street. We've got 3 new teachers at 4th Street Elementary, 1 transfer in from a 4K position, which would make 4 new staff on site. We have 3 new aides in the building. We've also got our benchmark assessments coming up, the 27th and 28th. They're 45-minute scheduled conferences, parent-teacher conferences also with the parents, and they're taking their benchmark assessments. Also coming up with that, during that time, we're going to have our school pictures going on during that time. We sent out a school messenger to remind all the parents that we have forms on site, or they can complete some online, registration for the school picture type stuff. Also, we've got coming up, we're doing PALS testing this year. You're going to hear more about that, I'm sure. But we've got some training set up ready for that. We had some staff that went down and got trained at CISA here a week or so ago before school started. So we're in the planning stages of preparing for how we're going to roll that out for all of our students. First grade is going to be the first group that's going to test for PALS, and then that's in September, and then the kindergarten and the 4-year-old kindergarten will do that in October. So we've got some staff training going on that on, I think it's the 17th and 18th after school. We're taking care of that, so an implementation on that. That's kind of the 4th Street update.
3rd Street Elementary, we had 3 new teachers and 3 new support staff that we hired this summer, so we've got some amazing new people coming in. It was really a joy to see that candidate pool and so many in both pools, the support staff as well. And so I got to formally meet my secretary, Sue Millis, our first full day of talking shop in the office, and she's just a wealth of knowledge, and you can't say enough about what the secretaries do for you, and they really make the building run smoothly, and so that's been a great deal of help. And staff have been in and out for quite some time now, getting their classrooms ready, and same thing there. It's just being brand new to the district, it's really nice, the welcoming greetings and suggestions and help and open-mindedness and some things to, it's been a great first few weeks, and look forward to a lot more.
One other update that I forgot about, the Public Affairs Committee has been talking about a district-wide newsletter, and I have been updating and trying to work with the Premier Printing from Marshfield, and we keep going back and forth. Where we finally landed was, I have published a newsletter that is going to be mailed out later this week. If anyone has some time they want to fold, we have 5,000 plus. They're 11 by 17 and they need to be folded twice. So and tape. And I said that I would bribe our kids with pizza, and she said, my kid's not doing that for less than a new wakeboard, just so we're clear. But we do have that ready, and it has a lot of those back-to-school announcements, as well as an invitation to the first community forum that we've talked about at this table, as well as just some other general community stuff, looking for some customer community service opportunities for groups of our kids to participate in. And so really trying to put some information in that appeals to the entire community, while because it is back to school, there certainly is stuff that is just specific to a school district, but it will be mailed again like the old district insights to every single postal office box holder. So I'm pleased that we were able to get an edition ready for fall. It is not the edition that we had talked about with Premier Printing, but we believe that this one is a more compact version of that with zero advertising, and we will continue to work with Premier so that maybe end of September, early October, we could do a more comprehensive edition that would have all those other components in it. So we felt it was important to at least start with something to begin the year, and so we published it in-house, and the next one we will happily hand off to that group. But just, I'm really excited that we're going to, again, reach out to every postal, every member of the community, not just those engaged directly with the school. So
When did you say that you were going to send those out?
how fast can we fold? We're hoping by Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So the first dates that are in there start next week, Tuesday, so it's going to be in their boxes prior to that.
So there's a lot of folding to have.
There is.
I'm sorry.
All good, we'll find someone. So now I'm clear.
Okay, next one, 0.8, discussion items requested by the administration. 8.1 is seclusion and restraint report.
That was included in your packet. I don't know if anyone has any questions specifically about it, or if it was fairly self-explanatory that you'd like some more on.
I had a curiosity question.
Sure.
You had mentioned in there that when students enter the district, their skills are all over. How many on average do we have that enter the district each year?
What I was getting at by that statement is that as kids come to us in kindergarten, their skill set, academically and behavioral, all over the map. And so the longer they're in a school setting, the more acclimated they become to a traditional school setting, and so have fewer instances where they need that kind of significant seclusion or restraint. So,
Do you get much of that with kindergartners?
Separation, probably more than seclusion and restraint. As you see, there are some times when it does get to a restraint, when the child is in imminent danger to themselves or another student. You need to physically restrain so that that doesn't happen. But yeah.
Anything else? 8.2 was strategic plan facilities.
Yep. I didn't include anything in there. I just wanted to have that conversation with the board that last month we talked about the strategic plan and the academic goals that we had been working on. The second piece of our strategic plan is public and community relations, and the third component has been facilities, and that really has been on hold for most of last school year, any type of a facility conversation. With the conversations that we've had regarding the Levitt Community Center, we've kind of talked around our facilities, and if you were at that meeting of the electorate, a lot of people asked questions about the possibility to be able to add on to our high school and do some work there, which again is talking around facilities without actually talking about, are we at a place where as a community we're ready to start talking about facility needs for our district and what would be the best way for that process to unfold. It seems pointless in my opinion, for me to invite the community to a large forum to talk about our facility needs if there's not 7 board members that agree it's time to talk about our facility needs. I wouldn't want, it just feels like that would be a little backwards. So I was looking for permission, for approval, for some conversation as to whether the board itself is supportive of trying to engage the community in that.
I would think so. I mean, I like the format that you have proposed here is to finding out what the public's interest is as well.
Absolutely. I don't think we start any conversation with, we need a referendum. I think we start the conversation with, here's our current reality, here's our facilities, what are your thoughts on it, and what do you think our next best steps are?
I think anytime we can get feedback from the community about anything, we should take advantage of that. I think it's a good idea.
It was nice that some people brought that up at the last meeting of the electorate. They talked about facilities, so I think it is time to start that discussion.
It would be nice to maybe have some of those forum meetings at each of the different schools, then you could maybe include a tour of the school at the same time. And I know you've invited people to do that in the past, but
I kind of feel like this first one needs to be zoomed out a little bit and a little more general, so.
when the discussion gets to that point.
Absolutely. You bet. And I know that's something that Blair Taylor did an awful lot when they got time for their referendum. They, had people dropping in at any point in the day, and they actually had an extra custodian there who walked people around on their tours, because who knows that building better than your custodian? So, absolutely, we need to get people in the buildings, but again, I didn't want to start the conversation if they are feeling like they want to talk facilities and then come to the board table and you say, not interested, that wouldn't feel like we were being responsive to their conversation as well.
So when are you thinking of starting those conversations?
Mary Jo and I actually scheduled the first community forum, Thank you. Yep. Monday, September 23rd at 6 p.m. And we're going to hold the first one at the public library. And we had talked that we're going to try to host a quarterly forum in which we would give a brief presentation so that there's kind of a reason for people gathering, but then it really would turn into an open forum where people are welcome to share thoughts and feedback on any topic that they are interested in sharing on. So, September 23rd, Monday the 23rd.
At 6, you said?
6 o'clock at the public library, yep. And so if it sounds like most of the board is going to attend, we'd have to post it as a public meeting, and we certainly can do that. I just want to make sure that is where we're headed. Sounds like...
I will not be here, but I'll be gone.
You would like...
I can't be there,
okay.
but I'm certainly in favor of it.
Okay.
You could post it as anticipating
okay.
a quorum being.
Okay.
Anything else in facilities?
I don't think so at this time. I'm just anxious to get the conversation started and see where the rest of the community is at with that.
Okay, we'll go on to 0.9, discussion items requested by the board. 9.1 was special education services report, and I thought it was Todd that had some questions about that.
Are we interested in delaying it for a month till Todd is here?
He was the one that questioned.
I think if he questioned it, we should wait till he's here.
Table it for me?
You're gonna be able to hold on a month, Sherry?
Oh, I can't.
All right.
I have more handouts though. Homework till next month.
You will not be quizzed.
So
That'd be interesting.
Table that until September. 9.2 is school calendar options, and Amy, I think you wanted to talk about some of those things that our district might like to explore.
Yeah, I noticed that Shelley had some information on just some different options that exist, but certainly I would like to delve into that and
Well, I was wondering if the board...
bring it up as part of our public forums and
if there is interest on the part of the board, perhaps, I don't know how many were interested, which is part of the reason I just kind of threw out some generalities and see where everybody else is, but as I mentioned, if it's something that the district is interested in, we could start an ad hoc committee and invite some community people to do some research into what those possibilities are. There is a consortium of other CISA 4 schools that you've probably heard about on the news, and it was just ironic timing that you had brought it up, and I knew that La Crosse had that one school that was sampling it this year, but there's a consortium of, I think, 4 or 5 other schools in CISA 4 that are talking about this, and so we certainly can try to glean information from them as well, but I agree that local information is always a little more valid, you know.
And it would be especially nice to get some feedback from schools who've been doing it for a while.
That's going to be hard to find in Wisconsin.
Well, maybe we have to look out of state and see, what it has worked well for some of these schools that have kind of left the traditional schedule.
Shelley, is that consortium from CISA 4, they're just looking at it, they aren't doing anything?
There's one school in La Crosse that is doing it this year, so that really, and they had to get a special waiver from the state to be able to do it. So there's one elementary school in the La Crosse School District who has gone to the year-round calendar. The rest of them are all talking about it, so.
So I think what would be good is to somehow participate in that, or I know if we can look in the West Coast has been doing a lot of year-round school,
Yep.
California.
Yeah.
And as we talk, or as we move forward with this in some way, it would be nice to have some of that information as to how it works and what the proposals are before we go and say, how would you like year-round school to the community? So I think we need more information before we can say,
Sure.
this is what we want to do, or this is what we would bring to you.
I was wondering if there's any chance that perhaps the C&I committee of the board would be interested in tackling this topic, because that committee doesn't necessarily have it certainly has an awful lot that they discuss, but it's not necessarily task-driven right now. It's more of an interest-driven, and so I'm just wondering if perhaps that's the vehicle to get this moving a little bit. How does everyone feel about that? Which is still you. So. Another reason it felt appropriate. So.
Are you still thinking of trying to become a part of that consortium?
I'm unsure as how active they have been, but I most certainly will ask at our first PAC meeting and see. So.
I would think much like bringing up a new facilities discussion, this is something we can't go forward on without a community discussion, or a lot of people will probably be very upset with us.
Well, we kind of watched it with Blair Taylor as they tried to do their 4-day school week in a frenzy hurry, and then it ended up not going very well at all. And so you're right, being much more thoughtful about it as we go forward.
Okay. We can, as a committee then, from curriculum and instruction, put together some factual information that we found or whatever. Then at least we'd have
Some
something
success
different.
stories or
Or the
Yes.
opposite, right, or both.
Yeah, I happen to know there's a few administrators interested in this topic as well, so I'm guessing we would get some assistance from them in doing some of that research as well. So, sure. All right, will do.
Okay, we'll move on to the first reading, 9.3 of policy 453.11, automatic external defibrillator.
Only change on this was to add the other schools. If you remember last year, Randy Arneson got a grant to buy AEDs for each of the elementary schools, so she just updated the policy by listing all of the schools there. So that is the only change to this policy.
how expensive were those again? They were very expensive.
They're pricey, for sure.
I don't know how much they were at, I can't remember. I know she got a grant, and then they were able, I thought, to get more than we thought.
I think because I think she got the grant to buy them, and then the company also lowered the price because she was buying multiple of them, so she ended up with a double deal, I guess. Awesome. Yeah. Not quite 2-for-1 deal, but a deal. So you can either choose to forward this to next month for a second reading and possible approval, or if you have concerns, we can send it back to the policy committee is where it stands from here.
How's everyone feeling? Do you want to forward it for a second reading next time?
Do we have to make a motion?
We don't need a motion for that, do we? No? Okay, we'll have a second reading next time on that policy. 9.4, first reading of policy 185.2, curriculum instruction and student achievement board committee.
So the board was interested in adding that committee. A few years back, they had worked on a policy and had created it. And then when Maureen was doing some digging, found out that a policy was actually created in the year 2000, that a committee had already been started, but was not necessarily active. So what we ended up doing was taking the new policy verbiage and putting the old policy number that was already approved to it so that we don't have two policies about the same function. So it really is one committee to talk about board curriculum instruction and student achievement.
So this, we already have this committee.
Correct.
Okay, that's
Correct. Yeah, but there was no policy governing it, no policy just describing its purpose and those kinds of things. Like we have a policy committee policy. We have a those kinds. So it's more a tidying up of our policies.
So this is for the existing.
Correct.
Okay, not an additional.
Nope. Correct.
And shall we move that for a second reading? Yes. Okay, do that. 9.5, first reading of policy 841, grants and gifts.
And the only, sorry. The only change in this policy is that I'm requesting, right now, any grants that are over $2,500 must be approved by the entire board. Anything less than $2,500 as superintendent, I can approve them. And I'm asking to up that dollar amount for board approval to $10,000. When we talk about grants, sometimes there's a very short timeline that they include, and so a staff member is trapped in the, do I apply and ask for forgiveness later, or do I not apply because I don't have board approval prior? You always have the right in that consent agenda, you always approve every gift of a grant. So it's not like you would be cut out of that picture. They would just be allowed to send that application prior to your approval. If for some reason you were so inclined, you could decline a grant once they received it if you wanted to. So this is really just trying to ease that process for applications so that we're not stumbling over the monthly meeting schedule.
And that did happen this summer with the Education Enrichment Fund grants. 2 teachers applied for 10 Apple iPads. And you got a better deal if you ordered more, but they had to each do the 10 because it would be over that $2,500 that was. So it does impact the response.
That's what we talked about.
And then we don't have to.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Sometimes we're just there for
Okay, for recognition. Okay.
Any other discussion on this? Would you like to bring this forward for a second reading in September? Yep. 9.6, first reading of policy 851, advertising on school property.
As you see this one, it's all red because our old policy was that one line that is stricken. It was our old policy on advertising, and sponsorship was not even a factor then. So obviously this is becoming much more prevalent in public education. People taking the opportunity to sell and advertise their district, and conversely districts receiving funds for people advertising on their school grounds and premises and programs. And we kind of have entered this slippery slope with the Public Affairs Committee agreeing to do that newsletter that we're selling advertising spots for, and yet we don't have a policy on what would govern that kind of sales. So it's time to do that, but there's certainly an awful lot to consider. Trying to think, policy committee.
Policy committee talked about it.
Yes.
And there were some questions that I think need to be addressed.
Yep. Would you like to highlight, or would you?
There was the one about the type of organism. Let's see here. No, it was.
There's something about nothing political.
Right, right, that,
what you were referring to.
it was right in
It's
that.
number 5.
Right.
And I don't think that, I'm not sure that was
No,
the more
no, it was
contentious
different.
one, number 10 perhaps, Marcel?
No,
No? Okay.
it
We
was,
had quite a lot of discussion about both.
yeah, it
Yes,
was,
we did.
it was not to further any particular, no, I can't think of it. But I would like to send it back to the policy committee.
And the policy committee brought it forward saying, we really need to have some measure of where the full board is before we can even tackle this again. So I think the policy committee is looking for some feedback from the rest of the board members. We did have a lot of conversation about number 10, no paid advertising shall promote the use of drugs, alcohol, or tobacco. Many other districts also include the word gambling on there. And so there was the discussion with the Ho-Chunk gaming in town, is it appropriate for Blackbird Falls to not have gambling there? Or because it, I mean...
That's a tricky one.
Number 6 was also one we talked about. No paid advertising shall advance or endorse any religious organization. And the question was, well, what's a religious organization? Are the Lutherans an organization? Are Catholics an organization? Are Methodists an organization? And if they are, then if someone would put a general statement in an advertisement that endorses prayer or in the schools. It isn't necessarily an organization that's endorsing it. So I think we need to clarify that.
I have thought about this a lot, because for one thing, we're a small community, and so if you turn down some people and let other people, and I think that can create some problems for us. And I like the idea of sponsorship rather than advertising. You know, I think we can have sponsors with the name of a business or whoever does that. But I would be really uncomfortable having Pepsi signs plastered all over our buildings, no matter what Pepsi Corporation is going to provide us with. So, the sponsorship thing is a little different. I know that we could, and other school districts do advertising and do reap the financial benefits from it. I don't think I would be in favor of that. I think it would be hard to be discriminating and not discriminating. You know what I mean? You can't discriminate, but we have to be discriminating. I think it would be problematic. So sponsorships such as a newsletter where you have a printed article that's not permanent, it's going to be destroyed, that lists a company or a business that supports the schools, I think is way different than an advertisement that says, buy our products.
I'm just taking it to the extreme. If we had a store that sold pornography in the area, would we want that to advertise in our school? Yearbook or?
I think this prohibits that.
Right.
But you could have a 7-Eleven that has a Playboy magazine in there.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Well, on when the Premier Printing was trying to sell spots, they called me and said, there's a place called the Buzz and Brew Shop. Is the school district comfortable with a brew shop having advertising on there? And us, knowing the Williams, were like, oh yeah, but then you think, oh, it's a brew shop, you know? So I understand what you're saying, that it's hard to be, you end up drawing some lines. And Tina Boysen was with us at that committee, and she had some very strong feelings about the gambling piece, as did others on the committee had some strong opinions. And so how to be respectful of everyone's views of appropriate and not appropriate.
I like that idea of sponsorships too, that they sponsor but not promote something necessarily.
Patty, what I was trying to clarify is, for you, is it different because it is is it the where it is written as opposed to what? Because when you describe like on an article, that's paper and they're going to throw it away, when you walk into the school, you don't necessarily see that plastered around.
Permanent seat, a billboard or a
I
sign.
think, yes, and I think a sponsorship is different than an advertising.
So I'm not sure I know how, though. I'm
Well,
not
if
sure.
you're advertising something, you are wanting people, and it implies that the organization you're advertising with approves of what you're selling. So if you are sponsoring something, you say, I support the school or this organization, whether or not they buy my products.
Sure.
So that to me is an important difference, I think.
Then around the hockey arena, we have all sorts of advertising signs all the way around
Yeah.
already.
Yes. But that is not a school district facility. So.
And again, the idea of a print thing, you know, you could say, okay, well, we found out now you're doing this and you really can't have it in the school and it's gone. You don't have it permanently affixed to something.
What do other districts do with this?
It's all over the map. Jill got this as a sample policy.
Pieces of this are in different policies from different districts across the state. I must say I have probably 8 to 10 samples. And they are all similar, allowing the construction of billboards and stuff with some approvals and things like that. I don't believe I had any that said no advertising, you know what I mean? Didn't have any, none of the samples she gave me had that. So I didn't have that perspective on it, I guess.
So all of our athletic programs have.
The actual paper programs have sponsorships or advertising, I'm
I don't know which
unsure.
one you're right, I don't know.
Because sometimes they'll put, bring this in for $2 off, blah, blah, blah. So is that an ad or is that a sponsorship? I'm not sure
That's
I'm
an ad, I guess.
clear, yeah.
I have to admit, I don't feel totally comfortable with that,
With what we currently are doing?
with advertising at all within the school. But I realize it's the real world. And we're going to need to get funds wherever we can get them. But just the idea of it, it's one more time where we're a captive audience because we need the money, and I'm afraid sometimes kids are taken advantage of. And not to pick on any particular companies or whatever, but whether, when you think about class rings, what they cost, I mean, there are a lot of people making money off the prom dresses. I mean, my goodness. I don't feel comfortable with that, but I understand it.
Part of the request was also that the yearbook advisor was interested in deferring some of the yearbook costs by adding some pages of sponsorships or ads in the back of the yearbook. So not interspersed with all the rest of the yearbook materials, but some separate pages that would help to defer the cost of that yearbook. And so you can certainly understand the practicality of it because it would, lessen the expense for others, yet,
Back when I was a yearbook editor in 1971 and 72, there were always advertisements in the back of those.
my yearbook also has,
Yes.
it was a little bit past 71, but there.
Well, they were around.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know how you can get away from it. With,
Do you see
the calendars.
sponsorships as the name and logo of the organization? Right?
Period.
Period. Right. And that's what we do a lot in our
Yes.
hockey
Yes.
programs. We have the youth hockey tournaments. They come out an ad in those. It's
Even on those
name
sports
and logo.
schedules that are always printed every year, it's got the logo of companies on them.
When you think about it, we really do use advertising.
We
More
do
than what we
sponsor-
think.
Oh, we do
Sponsorship.
margin with the sunset.
If you can't read the stricken policy, it says, persons may enter into an agreement with the board to post advertising signs on school property. That was the gist of the former policy.
Maybe it was easier than you could say it anyway.
Yeah,
It seems like we ought
Without
to be
spelling
able
It
it.
wasn't excluded. Right?
Right.
It seems like we ought to be able to come up with something less wordy and more concise and clear.
For instance.
Well, those on the policy committee, do you feel like you have enough direction from the others to bring back, or not necessarily?
Laura, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's definitely a reality that, like you said, there's hard times, and even maybe when there weren't, we needed, we still, I think it's the community supporting us through sponsorship, say, and we supporting them by putting the word out that they exist, but not necessarily to buy their product. But I think definitely we need to have something in place that says, something a bit more defined than what it was, for sure. To say what's allowable and what isn't. Oh boy, but there's some really fine lines.
Well, even in terms of a sponsorship, how badly do you want that business that's out on Highway 12 towards Maryland, their sponsorship put on anything that we have?
Doesn't meet the criteria, though, when you read those
No.
things,
And
there's no way we would.
So I think I would tend to agree that these criteria, or some criteria, need to be put in, whether it's worded this way or what. I think that would need to be so that you wouldn't be obligated to advertise for certain establishments.
Appropriate, I'd be.
Age appropriate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that could cover an awful lot of
It
things.
absolutely could.
We don't feel it's age appropriate for it to, because it's tobacco based, like,
Right.
so you don't even need that other language, like number 10, because those other things are not age appropriate. And,
Well, and quite honestly, those things are stricken based off of the dress code. Students can't wear clothing that advertise any of those items.
Number 10's in there, part of that is WIAA as well, because you put this kind of stuff in your facilities, you can't have.
Oh, we can't host
We
events.
can't have advertising for any of that.
So we would like to send it back to the committee to do some more work.
I would definitely say that we need to leave some criteria in there, even if it is just no paid advertising that shall be allowed that is not age appropriate. Because, wow, that came right in and out just as quickly.
Do you want any of the philosophical stuff? I mean, part of this is philosophical, trying to explain the policy
I think it should be.
and the purpose of it.
I think it should be just concisely stated.
Okay. Something to back us up, that's what I was going to say, to different advertisers or sponsors. If,
Yep.
you know, that helps to
Yeah.
explain why are we turning this organization down, because here it is in our policy.
And
You know.
and that is a legitimate question about the doesn't do.
It is.
So that's.
Should we plan to work on this at the policy committee?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Instead of us trying to,
Yep, yep,
okay,
yep.
yes.
So we have a sense of where we need to go with it.
We'll go back to the policy committee. And we are at 9.7, first reading of policy 531.8, gifted and talented job description.
There were some very minor changes, and I apologize, I didn't redline it. There were things like updating it to utilize the virtual school. Oh, I just redlined in the back, sorry. Because we've had another turnover in this position, and so we took the opportunity to make sure that the job description was truly everything that we expect of that person to do. So some very general, that typical physical characteristics, that is something that should be on all of our job descriptions. It just has not been gone back and put on all of them, but it is pretty standard language that we will continue to add to all of them as we revise them.
What is simulated experience? Could you tell me what that means exactly?
Can you put
I mean, I
me-
can, it's under number 2, it's the last thing, experience or simulated experience. And it was in the other one too with another position.
I'm guessing it's supposed to be similar experience, and
It's the same language as in another one.
I bet it's supposed to be similar, Amy.
Oh, right here.
Yep. I believe that is supposed to be similar, because I would not know what simulation is as well.
So, okay, it says the same thing in the virtual school coordinator under number 2, experience or simulation experience.
Similar.
Okay.
Or stimulation experience.
We'll go similar. That's a good question. Go back to it.
Good eyes on that.
That's right.
So we would like this to come back for a second reading in September, I would guess. Okay. And the last one is 9.8, first reading of policy 531.9, virtual school job description.
And as this is a new position, there was no job description, and so this obviously was copied in part from the gifted and talented with the simulation experience as well. But this is a new job description, and it really is similar to many of the gifted and talented, because it is really stretching students and creating more opportunities. And so as you read through there, that really is the intention of that position, to continue to work with what we have, but also research and investigate best practices elsewhere in virtual education. So.
Any questions on that? And are you in favor of having a second reading in September? Second reading in September. Okay. Move on to number 10, discussion items requested by the public. I don't think we had any, did we? That's not. Board reports. Number 11, 11.1, WASB and other. The only thing that I had is that those fall regional meetings are coming up. Are we Region 6? So that would be Toma on October 8th.
Yes.
So you might want to put that on your calendar.
And that is something that if people are interested, we very easily could carpool down together. I can either take my van or the school van, but we certainly can go.
October 8th to 20th.
I don't remember what time it started. Okay.
Yes, they have to register. Yep, there is a registration for it, so if you would let, yep, so if you would let Maureen know, could you, we can hold them forward or whatever, if you're allowed in that spot.
Yes.
Okay. Or you could let me know as well.
I will go.
What was the topic for that? I can't remember.
I think it's just to get together and talk with, they didn't have a general talk, but they, just a general discussion, wasn't it?
It was general discussion, but why do I think there was also,
Something about I want to say,
Or was that a different one?
Did something maybe just come in the mail today?
Yes, just, that was a different one, a seminar also, but it wasn't,
seems to me there was
there
listed.
were two different
There's like
ones.
an additional workshop that you can add on.
it was like a
to it.
pre-session that Mary Jo was hoping to go to, but are you Googling while
Yeah.
to speak? Okay. Thank you.
While she's Googling, let's go on to policy committee, 11.2, anything?
We already talked about that particular item.
11.3, public affairs committee.
Did not meet.
11.4, curriculum,
Can I-
CNI.
I know I'm not on that committee. Can I just make a comment? This kind of came up in a discussion we had when we got together. After the board, the electorate thing, I had received a comment from my father-in-law that if I hadn't said something to him, he wouldn't have noticed about that meeting. And we had kind of discussed that when we had gotten together a little bit. And so I thought, well, I'm just gonna ask people a little bit what they think, why they didn't notice it or what would help them to notice it.
Which meeting are you talking about?
The board, the electorate meeting,
Oh.
you know, and there was the whole legal notice in there. And I know that he gets the banner and reads it, so he's not one of those people who doesn't. And I did receive the comment that when there's a legal notice, it just automatically gets skipped. They don't even look closely at it to see what it's about. And it just, and so somebody said, what if you had it in, obviously you have to have the legal notice, but if there's also something put in plain, everyday language so that they can understand what it's about.
Pat, didn't you do an article
We
the
did.
week before?
Yeah.
There was an article.
Okay.
Sorry.
It was a short notice, but I think it's the same week as probably your legal notice. I have to look back, but yes.
But it was definitely prior to the meeting, because I remember you called me about it, so there was an article that,
And then some other comments were that if we could use the radio, because people do listen to that a lot. And I don't know if they do public service announcements that would be free.
I'm sure.
So that would
Send
really,
most of our notices to the radio.
And they do read, they read them off, some of them I've heard, but.
That's another way.
It's gotta be guidelines, like that.
I do too, because people listen to that in the morning. And they're paying attention, they're paying close attention because there might be something good on there that they want to know about. So it sounds funny, but, you know, our goal is to get more people involved in, you know, when you hear comments that they didn't even know about it, it's disheartening, I know.
It is, and then we go back to the, unfortunately, people do not necessarily come until they feel something has been done that's incorrect. You know, then they're willing to come. And so that's hard because we continue to invite and yet not necessarily everyone is willing to engage. But that certainly does not mean that we stop trying. So I appreciate the new ideas.
I think it will help too once we have that district letter going out.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you, Jill.
Yeah. This was a workshop, legality of running a school board.
That's what I thought. It was.
Celebrate accomplishments, network with your colleagues, and hear about the VSB's activities and plans. You want to know the date?
It's October 8th.
Change by region.
I did look on it, it was the 8th.
Okay.
Well, we can get more out of that.
Yep.
Okay, did we do 11.4, CNI committee?
Well, we met. We got a lot of information. We learned more in depth, I guess, about the RTI process and had an opportunity to take a look at the process, the flow chart, and then monitoring the progress of that process, I guess. Also had an update on the PBIS. The as a national approach to handling behaviors. And locally, equating itself to the Tiger Way. And so looking at, in terms of the Tiger Way, being respectful, being responsible, and being safe as the highlighted areas. And I thought it was cool that a lot of times we expect certain behaviors out of students, but we don't necessarily role model them or teach them what the expectation is or what that behavior looks like, and that's what this does. So really neat. We also looked at the new leadership team structure and the members for the 2013 leadership team. Every area and every school very well represented on that team. And we'll leave it at that. How about you, Amy? Anything else?
I think you pretty well summed it up.
Okay. So
What,
that's
the leadership team, that made up volunteers or people?
We actually posted them as positions because it's a paid position, and we interviewed and selected people for each of the diverse areas. So each of the buildings has representation, each of the core content areas does, as well as STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, as does CRT, which is culturally responsive teaching, as does CTE, which is career and technical education. So we did those interviews in the spring. We had one meeting with the whole group around the table. All the administrators are also part of that team. We had one meeting last spring, and looking forward to next Monday is actually our next meeting.
How large is the total group then?
15 without the admin, so 20, yeah, we're up there in numbers. But yeah, it's good.
Did you feel like I did ask, like, I would like to know about that leadership team and the RTI full process?
Yeah.
How about future agenda item identification? All right.
Yeah, and I had asked to know more about some of those teams that are within the leadership team, like the cultural, I can't remember exactly.
Culturally responsive teaching, yeah.
Yes, it'd be interested to know just how that works and what all it involves. So, you know, there's probably others that would be interesting in the same respect to learn how that functions. And
As the teachers all come back, the intention is that each member on that leadership team, we had talked about our meetings that focus on our purpose, that the beginning of each meeting will be one member from the leadership team giving just a 5-minute presentation on their role and their connections and what their group does within the district. So the building reps, it might be a little different, but by the end of the year, you should have heard a little bit from most of those people on that leadership team. But we most certainly can bring that structure forward so everyone has that same information. Glad you found it interesting.
We'll be looking at some point in the future, besides the culturally responsive teaching, the virtual school process to have a presentation there. So.
Any other conference or workshop attendance that anyone has participated in? Okay. Any other reports?
I just want to review the upcoming meetings if I can, remembering that I have August at the end, but next Monday is our annual meeting of the electors, but remember that the morning is that welcome back for everybody in the district, and the board members are very, very welcome to be there. 7:15 breakfast starts in the middle school commons, and then we roll right into our welcoming activities. There's a presentation that will take till about 10:15, that is for everybody, and then we break into support staff is done then for the day, and the cooks and the bus drivers will go about their business, and the teachers will stay for professional development on the new teacher effectiveness evaluation model. So, I mean, if you're curious about that, you're welcome to stay, but that is for the rest of the day. But we'd certainly love to have you there for that morning kickoff and welcome on Monday the 26th.
I appreciate that invitation.
Yes, good. And then that night is our district annual meeting, so remember that meeting is scheduled to start at 7 o'clock. However, we will need to have a special meeting prior to that. We are hopeful, I have another topic. Oh, the BRF ESPA is hopefully going to ratify their contract so that we could then approve that one at a special meeting prior to that meeting. Also, there may be a need for more conversation on the Lenda Center lease agreement. And so a need for a special meeting that night. Mary Jo Razmanowski asked if we could have our special meeting starting at 6 o'clock, so plenty early, so that she would be able to be out greeting guests as they came to the annual meeting closer to 7 o'clock. So hoping to start that at 6 o'clock next Monday. Does that seem to work for most for that special meeting? Sure. Good. Good. Okay.
When was the picnic? Welcome back picnic. I forgot.
Mr. Epps, can you help me out?
Wednesday, August 28th,
Thank you.
4:30 to 7. You're all invited.
And I appreciate your
To clarify, the policy committee meeting, I was moving it from Monday. Patty, you had this question. I was moving it from Monday, Labor Day, and I was actually trying to put it on Tuesday, the 10th. And 2 people responded back and said, no, that's the 9th. I meant Tuesday, the 10th. So
Rather than having it on Monday night, you want to...
correct, because I have public affairs conflicts with policy. Some of the people on those committees conflict, whereas if we go on Tuesday the 10th, that's C&I and policy, and none of those people overlap. So we wouldn't be putting board members in that position to pick one or the other.
Because I have to arrange my...
Right.
Would that be the only night, and then we'll go back to Monday?
Yes, it's just that it falls on Labor Day that month, so it's either move it or not meet for that month, so, yep. Okay, that was all that I had for those updates.
13, future agenda item identification. I think I wrote down the RTI vote process. We'd like to know a little bit about the leadership team, the cultural CRT. Anything else?
Actually, if you come on August the 26th to that back to school welcome thing and that Making Connections, you're going to hear about all of those things. So after then, you can tell me if your questions are answered, if you still need more information.
Anything else that anyone has? Okay, I need a motion to go into closed session. I guess I'll make the motion for us to go into closed session.
Second.
You read
I have to read that.
Read the purpose.
Okay. The school board will adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, paren L, paren E, for the purpose of reviewing and discussing negotiations related to potential agreement concerning the transfer of land to the Lenda Community Center, Inc., and the transfer of land from the Black River Falls Area Foundation and the lease of the field house and related spaces by the district from the Lenda Community Center, Inc. Now, I make the motion that we go into closed session, and who seconded this? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're in closed session.
Thanks for coming, everyone.